pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do I see no newspaper lady? No Gardner News? Is anyone in the audience recording? No? Okay. The first item on the agenda is the approve the minutes of October 17th, 2013.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from October 17th, 2013.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Anybody got issues? I didn't see none. Oh, yeah, there it is. Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. The next item is the acceptance of the minutes for November 12th, 2013.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from November 12th, 2013.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? We got any problems? Mistakes? Actually, they were pretty good, I thought. Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
And yes. The next thing is an item concerning the highway department. I requested Mr. Chase to come here. My question, or my concern, you came before the board about purchasing a new snowplow for the town, for the highway department. The reasons given were good, and I understand them. There was a highway truck that had a route, and it has a one-way plow on it. That's a plow by design. It's built to the right, so when you drive down the road, it just pushes the snow to the right, and that's the only position. It doesn't move or anything. And the highway superintendent came before the board and made the case for the town to buy a new snowplow, one which would be a power angle plow, and that is a plow that by hydraulic operation, it'll go to the right, it'll go straight, it'll go to the left, varying degrees. And he made the case that this was needed for a truck that does a route, and to do that plow route, the roads that he does, expedient and efficient. Some of the intersections in the beginning of the road and the end of it, when you go to turn around, you just angle the plow this way and push that way, push this way at intersections and stuff. It's very efficient, very easy. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I understand that concept, and I know about those things. Something I do. So I understand that whole thing. I have no issue with that. Then the plow was purchased. It was delivered to the highway barn, and I drove into the AHISMA animal control, the animal rescue thing, to look at it, and I drove through the highway barn area, and I see the new plow attached to the grader. So I requested that you come before the board. You came before the board, you made the case for the plow, the reasons. I have no problem with it, I understand it, it makes perfect sense. But then I see that plow on the grader. So my first question is, the plow that you came in here and said that you needed to be replaced, what's gonna happen with that? Is that truck doing that route that you made the case for this plow to be purchased, is it still gonna use that old one-way plow? Or is there another power angle plow on that truck? And why is a new plow put on a grader that, in my opinion, shouldn't be a first choice frontline plow unit? It's using a grader to plow snow, maybe if a blizzard of the size of 78, or maybe the one we had in, I think it was 06, 05 or 06, I forget. And perhaps maybe the one we had last February. I wasn't around for that one. But, so that's my issue. You came before the board and you asked for a piece of equipment. We voted for you to buy it for the reasons that you stated. And now I see it's on the grader rather than on a truck. That, you know, you said did a specific route and he needed it for the reasons, given. I'll ask the rest of the board. I feel that you came here and misled not only the board but the taxpayers. Like I said, you come and ask for a plow, you gave the reasons, I totally understand it, but then it ends up on the grader. I don't know if this is the case of the boss getting a new toy or what, but it bothered me. And it bothered me enough to request you to come here and explain.
I'll be happy to answer that, Jeff.
Just a second, does anyone else on the board? You leaving that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just want to hear, what he has to say.
Okay. All right.
Okay? When I came to the board, I proposed and came in with some requests and some paperwork for a vortex plow, if you recall. It was new plows, prices on new plows. After that happened, I'm just gonna give you the history so everybody knows what you're talking about. And then you notified me that you knew of a used plow up in Ringe, New Hampshire, that I should check that out. I did. That particular plow wasn't the same type of plow that I was requesting to buy, but the purchase price was pretty decent for the town to buy it. It wasn't a brand new plow, it was a demo, so it had been used, so I would consider it to be a used plow, but in very, very good condition, like new. It is a bow tie plow, which has high ends on both sides versus a vortex, which is low on one side and high on the other. We were looking for a plow with a high discharge for pushing back snow, stacking when it needs to be done in town. And I did come to the board to say that I wanted to change over a truck that we had with a fixed plow to a four-way plow, which is still the intentions. We have the plow that came off the grader, was a straight blade edge, just like our rivers, you know what they are, Jeff. That, after receiving this bow tie plow, which is a little high, it's higher on both sides, can plow either side of the road, whatnot, I felt it to be more effective to put that type of plow on the grader versus keeping the one that we've been using on it. The route that the grader plows, and I happen to be the operator on that, is one of our frontline pieces. It plows, and I disagree with you about, using that on the road every storm. It's no different than running a loader on the, using loaders or trucks. We don't have that many pieces. We have to utilize everything in our fleet to plow. The grader plows main roads in town, Ballmerville Road, Dudley Road, Berry Road. They're very big and wide roads. So, I didn't feel like I was getting a new toy, and I'm a little offended that you would think that way after all my years of working here and plowing here. I'm looking for what's best for the department. Whether I'm running that machine or somebody else is running that machine, doesn't matter. It seemed to be the best fit for that type of plow on that piece of equipment. The plow that's intended for the Mack that Dave Smart drives here is 11-foot hydraulic angle plow. We were just gonna switch it over. And he would use that plow. Still have the same intent of, and that was the intent originally, was to get a Vortex plow to put on his. Now he's up plowing areas not as wide as what the grader plows. Because when the grader goes on the road, he's got two plows on, one in the front, one on the side. I'm plowing one full travel lane down, one full travel lane back. When Dave, I'm gonna just use Dave as an example, when he goes up his route, he's gotta go up 2 times on one side, 2 times on the other side, twice the field, twice the travel. I feel that the grader is more effective on our main roads. We found it to be, we've proven it. It's much more efficient. I get those roads done plowed in less time than the crew does on some other roads. So it was never intended that way. I didn't try to falsify the board or the taxpayers. It was a plow that came in after the fact, and it just seemed to be the best fit. And as the department head, I feel that's my job to move things around, change things around to make the department more efficient. That's the case. If it bothers the board that the plow, the new plow is attached to the grader right now, tomorrow morning, we'll take it off and we'll attach it to the other truck. And I'll put the other plow back on the grader. It makes no difference. It just seemed to be the better fit. The grader does go out and push back when we get them high drifts and whatnot. That's what goes out and pushes back, because the grader and/or Lotus can get closer to the edge of the road and be more stable than one of our trucks that's got mirrors on it and banging at branches and trees. It seems, it works. There are a lot of towns, cities, and communities all over New England that use graders on their roads, and they plow. They're very effective. As in, when you go to an airport, they're pushing 22-foot plows. Why don't they use an 11-foot? You know, I mean, you get more done with more plow on the ground. That's my take on it.
Well, you can't use a 22-foot plow on a road because it won't go down the road safely.
Well, I understand that, but in airports, they plow with the biggest piece they can. They want to clean
Mass
it
Highway
up.
has trailer
quick.
plows that they swing around, they're 60 feet long.
We're just trying to be very efficient at the highway department and get the job done so that we can get the roads safe, get them treated, and then release the crew.
But I just understand my point is, you know, you ask for a plow and you say it's for this and this, and then the plow is purchased and it's on a piece of equipment other than, you know, what we were told.
And the day I met you up in Range, New Hampshire to look at that used plow, I stated right there, we'd probably put this plow, since it's so big, on the grader. I stated it right up there in your yard.
Go ahead, then.
I mean, since the piece of equipment that we purchased is different than what he asked for, I don't really feel that he misled us or, you know, intentionally did something, you know, behind our back. I mean, I think Bud has really good judgment. He knows the roads. He's done the work for years. You know, I mean, as a department head, I would trust his judgment. If he thinks that's the better piece of equipment for the blade that we bought, which isn't the blade he was asking for, then I think that's okay.
He actually had two options when he came before us, a straight blade and the other plow. Ken?
Well, just was gonna say exactly what Doug did, that I think that because, well, in particular, the piece of equipment that he purchased on your suggestion was not the piece that we had discussed here, then I wouldn't expect him to use it for in the same manner that he would have used a new Vortex plow.
The only difference in that, and I recommended to look at this other company because it was less money, which saves the taxpayers money. And it's basically the same plow we wanted, it's just high on both ends, instead of being low here and high here. But it's when, you know, you say it's like you say you want to buy a pickup truck and we say go buy it, and then I see a new dump truck there. You know, it just appears, you know.
Jeff, if you'd have called me and/or stopped up to the highway department, I could have explained this at the highway department and not taking meeting time to
But,
discuss why I changed it, because I changed it because basically with the option that you gave the town, you changed it, and I was happy with the change. It seemed to be the right thing to do, less money and whatnot, but one of the plows, one out of those two plows that I proposed to the board was exactly the same plow that we use almost entirely on our fleet. And if that same plow would've came in, that plow would've been put on that truck. I don't need the new toy.
oh, and just so you're aware, I'm not the only person who drives by the highway barn and sees that plow on that piece of equipment. So,
Well, we did get the plow ready. We put it on the machine to see if it was gonna fit up all right, if it worked all right on the truck, and since we're not grading any roads at this time, that unit is plowed up. It's ready for the first snowstorm that needs to be plowed. And the day you saw it was parked out back, and the only reason it was parked out back, not because I was hiding it out back, it was because I understand, but I'm just stating, it wasn't being hid out back. It was out back because the highway department had some equipment staged for the next day job, and they parked it in where the grader normally parks, so it was parked out back just out of the way until they were done.
well, it's hard to hide a.
Well, it's
big
pretty, I
orange
wasn't
thing.
trying to hide it. I wasn't
Pretty
trying
hard
to
to hide
hide
that
it.
big orange thing going up.
Well, and I guess what I'm a little confused by too is that, and I would direct this, and I would say the same thing to any head of a department, is that no individual selectman has any authority whatsoever to do anything or to suggest that a department head do something, and that, we can obviously make suggestions, but department heads, I feel, shouldn't feel pressured. Not that you necessarily felt pressured, but I'm just saying that what I find a little concerning is that we as a Board of Selectmen voted to approve a new piece of equipment to be purchased. And I understand that we can save money, that was cheaper, then we probably should have discussed that as a board in an open town meeting, rather than now this is all of a sudden becoming a problem when this wasn't dealt with this way. I mean, so I find that more concerning to me, and I don't really find it that concerning, let me just express that, but I find it more concerning that the equipment that even though it was on the suggestion of an individual select person, whether that select person is the chairman or not, that, if we as a board voted, oh yeah, do this, then that's what I find a little concerning, that now the town doesn't have a new piece of equipment, we have a used piece of equipment, which is kind of what we discussed as a board. So that would be the issue that I would find more than worried about who's using it or on what piece of equipment it's on,
As I stated, I'm not the only individual that drives by and sees that. So,
If it pleases the board, I can switch the plow to mine. It makes no difference what what that machine pushes. It's, I'm okay with it, Jeff.
no, but no, like I said, when you come and you say all the reasons that I stated, and I understand them all and they make sense. But then, when I see it and other people see it and ask, I thought it was going here or there. It's just something that,
Yeah, I don't want you to think
discussed
that
in
I
open
deceived the
meeting.
board. The original intent was to put a new hydraulic plow on that particular truck that this gentleman drives. The plow model changed and it was different, and it looked like it would be a better fit on that particular unit,
okay,
plowing wider roads. But we can change that if you like.
I just wanted to ensure that that same old plow was not gonna be left on that truck.
Absolutely not. That would have been deception, and I wouldn't have done that.
So that's why I asked
It
you
will,
to come.
so you know,
Yeah.
that plow, that fixed plow that we are replacing, we're not gonna get rid of it, we're gonna keep it in the yard. In the event that something breaks down in the middle of the storm, it's a spare to throw on there to get us through the storm if need be. So I don't think we should sell it right now, that'd be my recommendation, but the board, if they wanna sell it, we could sell it.
Things are worth more than scrap.
It
Just a
probably is
question,
more worth more than scrap,
all
but
all the Fisher plows that are parked at the highway department, do we have trucks for all of those? Or have we like bought a truck or gotten a truck and it had a plow on it, so they're like stacking up?
Currently, right now, we have a 9-foot Fisher plow that is gonna be a standby because remember, we took 2 small trucks off the road. They're out of service, they're decommissioned. So we have a spare 9-foot, and we have a spare 8-foot that came off the cemetery department's pickup truck. Those are in the yard right now, those are spares until we can, for whatever reason. They're
No, I
spares.
just looked, I saw I think there's like 7 or 8 Fishers, and I wasn't aware, you know, we had that many small trucks at the
Well,
highway
it's-
department.
Through the course of the off-season, the cemetery department leaves their plows up to the highway barn. In the event that they need repairs over the off-season, we repair them, and then, you know, so, but, I mean, we're still down 2 small trucks currently. And just to brief the board a little bit on the fire truck that we're putting into service as a sander, first piece, plow and sander, where we'll need to take one of our spare plows when we build this, when the mechanic and the highway crew builds the snow plow for it. We're gonna put a snow plow, that's the intention, putting a snow plow on the front, and it'll have a sander on the back. The sander came from a swap with Town of Petersham a year ago. It's nearly in service now. The sander is actually mounted, whatnot. We just gotta fabricate the plow frame. The reason for doing that is because we're down 2 small trucks. That one truck will be the replacement for our deficiency in fleet size. Did I say that properly? I'm not sure. Sounded good. Okay, thank you very much.
Good enough. Do you know how much, the amount of material you used over the weekend? I mean, do you have that at the highway barn?
Yes, but I can probably speak, can't tell you exactly how many yards. Are you looking for how many yards of sand?
Just, no,
How many?
yeah.
A full sanding operation in town will normally use about 32 to 35 tons of salt. And that's mixing it at a 25% ratio, 3 sand to 1 salt. And depending on the intensity of the storm, whether it's a light, medium, or heavy application, obviously if it's snowing 1 inch or 2 inches an hour, then we have to go into the heavier application. We use approximately 3, 6, if we use, oh boy, I have to.
Well, I don't know, I just.
Okay, yeah, don't hold me to the amount of sand that we use. I know each truck puts out about three sander loads, you know, per operation. And currently, we're running 5 sanders.
No, because that just, and I know I've asked you about the numbers before, but that just kind of helps.
It's documented at the barn. Each time one of the drivers finish his task, sanding and whatnot, he fills it out on his daily time slip, how many loads of material that he expended on the roads.
Okay, 'cause that just helps
I just don't have it with me tonight.
guesstimate, and it is a true guesstimate because it involves the weather, about budgeting for the amount of salt purchased and.
It's, like I say, it's approximately a trailer dump of salt, which is 30, the dumps come in anywhere from 32 to 35 tons per trailer dump. It's approximately a trailer dump gets us, you know, it's a normal storm. A light application would be less than that, of course, you know, but. Now, this particular weekend, the crew was called 2 different times to come in and sand. They hit it the first time. Squall came in again, everything iced over once again, they had to go out and hit it again. But I believe both operations were medium applications.
Okay. else? No. That would be it. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
And that is,
Stephanie?
the next item on the agenda is MRPC Joint Housing Services proposal, which is the Community Innovation Challenge Grant. And this would be a grant in working with six.
Royalston, Phillipston, Hubbardston, Templeton, one other.
I
I
think,
think Westminster, but I'm not positive.
is it Orange? in there?
Orange.
If it is Orange,
It is.
I attended a fundraiser for State Rep Denise Andrews, and Orange is her hometown, and she's, that's one of the things that she wants to work on, because her community of Orange, and I believe it's Athol and one other, she's working on the affordable housing, which is 40B. And this is a grant that the Department of Revenue is pushing. And they also have grant money for regionalization services to pursue that. So if we ask or contact State Rep Andrews, I would assume we would get some help as far as down in Boston, and maybe communicating, since this is something that she's not only working on her for her hometown, but a couple other communities in the district. It is a grant, it's an application. It doesn't hurt to ask for, it's not, free money, but it's not raised off your property taxes. I mean, increase in local property taxes. It's, the tax dollars, just getting back some more of your tax dollars. So, any,
I can add a little more if
Yes.
the public wants. So, MRPC, the planning agency, has a proposal. They've asked us to participate jointly with these other towns in this proposal, which they have filled out and awaiting a vote and a signature this evening, to form a joint housing services office among all of these towns. A housing services office, as the name implies, provides generalized and generic housing services to people in the community. Typically low income, but not necessarily. That's not a requirement. It's a housing officer who is well versed in interest rates for mortgages, availability of Section 8 housing, availability of 40B housing, the requirements of state law to meet your housing plan, which is under Chapter 40B of state law, the requirement that up to 10% of all housing units in each town in the Commonwealth be qualified as moderate income housing. And there's a income guideline that varies from community to community. It's a soft requirement that towns create moderate income housing and keep a listing of it and have a plan to generate 40B housing. And that information has to be filed with the state annually, and they monitor communities. We had someone on the payroll here in Templeton who, in the budget cuts, we had the position defunded, and for the past year there's been no housing services office outside of my desk in the town of Templeton. And now the regional planning agency has offered to create that function on behalf of the 5 towns in this application, which they would run from their offices, by the way, at MRPC. The physical location would be their office
in Fitchburg will just refer calls to a specific individual and a phone number there. But in essence, they're acting as the town's agent. And the total cost of the town of Templeton is zero, direct cost. Mr. Bennett's correct, your state taxes, of course, are funding this through state planning.
I just wanted to make sure, so there's no, it's not like a first year paid and then we have to contribute, it's a completely, okay, great.
It's a regionalization effort under the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program, which is a effort of the Commonwealth to regionalize services. And this is a great regionalization initiative, really, when you think about it. Each of these towns might need someone 4 to 8 to 10 hours a week. We don't even have a half-time position. Well, if you get 5 towns together, you actually can fund a full-time position to do it for all 5 towns.
I'll make a motion to have the chairman sign the Community Innovation Challenge application.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. I'll sign this right now. Pass that down, Joe. That's signed.
Thank you.
Okay. That's done. The next item on the agenda is to discuss requesting documents from Templeton Municipal Light and Water, namely the water capital improvements that were recently voted in electronic form if possible, and the new Zone 2 delineation area maps if possible. And Julie?
Yeah.
You requested?
As a water customer, I received notice that the rates, the water rates were going to be increased. And within that letter, it referenced the rate study that was done for the water system, as well as the capital improvements that were to be done. And I think that information should be public to anybody who wants it, and I think it should be on the town's website. So that's why I think we should request it in electronic form, so that it can be posted. The Zone 2 delineation areas, I believe we just voted that recently at the town meeting. That's wellhead protection, basically. And I'm on open space, and I'm gonna need those maps so that we can figure out how much area is protected, and if there's any open space available nearby that may be up for protection as well. It may be a priority. So that's why I asked to have these 2 items put on. I don't know if we need to make a formal letter, or I think maybe we should, just to have it on record.
Okay.
And I personally don't have water service, so I didn't know about the rate increase and whatnot, but I sure heard about it. So I have to say that I agree with Selectman Farrell, that I think that the more information that we could get regarding the reasons for the increase and and for other reasons, just for general openness of public government, local government, I think that it would be a good idea to maybe even put it in a formal letter requesting that information be provided in that format if possible.
See, we really do. I'll make that up. We really do get asked and talked, and sometimes you hear about it. So, I would entertain a motion to send a formal letter, so it is on the record, requesting from Templeton Water Commissioners a copy, preferably in electronic form, for the water capital improvements recently voted and the delineation area maps, if that's possible.
I will make that motion.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Excuse me. Seeing none, hearing none.
Is this the lease of water rates December 1st you're talking about?
Yes, what they're gonna do, the projects, I guess, that they're gonna work on to justify the increases in the water rates.
Yeah, they went from 25 to $49, which is almost 100%. And 2 years ago, they went up almost 50% for that part. As far as the rate, $7.37 for the first 12,500. That comes out to $88 if you use 12,000 gallons, which is probably my average. So now it's close to 138 instead of somewhere around 101 or 2. Means about $12 more a month increase.
And you're gonna get the same rate on your sewer.
And can they justify the increase from 25 to 49? That's something I'd like to know.
We'll see what we can do.
All right.
Yes.
Well, just to make a comparison, like the figures that you gave, like think of how much energy and discussion occurred around the override, you know, and that, the water increase over the last several years is more than what, you know, we just passed as an override with all of that energy and everything put into it. So I think that the information that we should have as much information as possible from Light and Water to really know what's going on, since we don't have the power to vote on those things the way we do an override.
Yeah. It said in that paper, we're gonna be paying for 40 years of stuff that they did, 40 years of stuff that they bought, like the new station down there, the Sawyer Street stuff. Them deals that they did, sneaky deals, 40 years stuff that we're paying for that now. And they give us 40 years of debt, we gotta start paying for it. That's what's listed in the paper, that's just all listed in the paper, if we read the paper. People don't read the
Diane?
papers, that's the trouble.
Diane, did you have your hand
I'm
up?
sorry, I'm one of those ones who don't always read the paper, but is it true, I also have a well, but I had heard about it too. People spoke to me, but is it not just a rate increase, but there's also a fee?
Like custom-
Is that in addition, or was that?
It's in addition.
It's in addition.
We.
So I
every
just had said that I
quarter-
felt
right,
like that was astronomically high in my opinion, and that I would
right.
do some research. I didn't know that it was on the agenda, but sending a letter formally is a great idea, but that seems like a
Well-
lot percentage plus a
Plus,
larger
well,
fee,
you have a
right?
rate increase, and then you have a customer, for the honor and privilege of getting town water, you get charged a quarterly fee, and it used to be $28 a quarter, it went up to $49 a
Yeah.
quarter. So that basically is bringing in another $423,000
To the water.
to the water department. And that's in addition to the rates.
Right.
And when I calculated it out, I believe if you include the service fee, which is not, it's not optional, you have to pay it or they shut your water off. You know,
Right.
if you include that into the rate itself, Templeton has the highest water rate. And
Yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
go up after this. 23% is just this year. It's gonna go up again next year.
Right.
They use some expensive stamps over there.
I think that they should stop sending envelopes, but that's just my thing, because I think that a lot of people, do you agree, can either use their own envelope, or it just seems like a large expense for, I don't know how many water or light customers there are,
It's
but
like, I think it's 1,500.
I just think it's a savings, like if you really looked at, you know, what you could do, it's small maybe, but it's a savings and it's an effort, but, you know. The other thing too that someone had asked me in addition to that for the water and the sewer, is it true that if you're not paying your sewer bill that they don't shut it off, so it doesn't matter if you pay, is that, so is there a reason why that's not happening, or, I'm just asking?
But they,
Because they don't work together, or?
right, most communities, the water and the sewer is together, so if you don't,
Okay.
you know, you don't get water.
A
They
couple of
shut your water
people
off.
had just brought that up to
Yeah.
me,
But if
so
you pay
I
your
said
water
I
bill,
wasn't
they
sure
can't
because I was-
legally, you know, if you pay your water bill, how do you shut off water if you paid the bill?
Right.
I mean, I've come over the counter, if
Right.
someone told me, you know, shutting that off, and I got a receipt in my hand. So yes,
Yeah,
and that's
okay.
been an issue. If you don't pay your sewer bill, what do you do about it?
Nothing, right?
You know, I
There's- Okay,
The sewer department asked the guys at the water department to help them out because they have
yeah,
people that will not pay their sewer bill, and the water department said, too bad.
yeah, and I just think that that's wrong, it was something that someone's,
Right.
that's just not right.
But like I
So-
said, they're not together, so,
Right.
you know, if you pay a bill, you pay your water bill, how can you shut someone's water off if you paid your bill? You know, so it's one of those conundrums that somewhere. Mr. Spring?
Those are the things that we tried to point out. The advisory board looked at that last year and made a study of our water department along with 5 or 6 other communities. It showed that their rates were some of the highest in the state, and that their budget was anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 more than a comparable size water department in other communities. Unfortunately, they got their budget passed. It should be somewhere in the vicinity of less than $1 million, but that's neither here nor there. That the people that voted to end up providing them with $1.4 million, we felt it was something that less than $1 million. They also, when we looked at it, the amount of people on the budget, as far as salary, the typical, as far as the water department, and you can end up looking at this, and it's very, very easy to look at, Townsend, which has about the same number of subscribers to their water, has a budget of a little over $800,000, and 5 employees, which include a clerk, which actually collects the money. In this community, we're talking about 8 people being on payroll. So that's part of the reason why it's so high. In addition, Mr. Casper ended up pointing out a very strong thing too, is that typically we don't like to take an end-up DOR as the state. Doesn't like to take an end-up seeing anything over 30 years as far as debt.
Yeah.
They have debt that's 40 years. It's gonna strap very much like what we are, debt that we have on the federal budget. It's gonna strap their water users for a long period of time, and that's not something that you don't really wanna do. Typically, DOR likes to see something like 20 years, but nothing over 30 years. So those are the type of things that your advisory board looked at, try to make some suggestions, but the townspeople saw elsewise. So I'm just, there's a lot of information out there. We're happy to end up providing that, and we'll probably be looking at that again this year.
All right. Is that it? All right, we have a motion made and seconded. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right. The next item on the agenda is a CDBG contract amendment for, it involves Community Opportunities Group, and it's for the engineering services on Memorial Street. A letter dated November 22nd, 2013, addressed to the Board of Selectmen. Recommendation for engineering plan update and bidding services contract award for the CDBG funded Back Bay Infrastructure Project Phase 6. On behalf of the town's Community Development Office and the town's Chief Procurement Officer, Jeff Ritter, we are recommending that the town award an engineering design plan update and bidding contract for the Massachusetts CDBG Back Bay Infrastructure Improvements Project Phase 6 to Weston Sampson Engineers Incorporated of Rocky Hill, Connecticut. This award would be made as amendment number 4 to Weston Sampson's contract with the town of Templeton dated January 26, 2012. On November 21st, 2013, the town issued a request for a quote for a plan update and bidding services to Western and Sampson. The firm has worked with Templeton since Phase 2 of the Back Bay project and has proven to be a very capable partner for the town. Weston and Sampson's proposal to the town dated November 22nd, 2013 was responsible and responsive to the stated goals of the project. It is therefore recommended that Weston and Sampson be awarded the contract based on a combination of factors including but not limited to price, qualifications, experience, understanding, the scope of the project, ability to meet the town's timeline for the project, references, and the quality of the firm's work as the engineer for Back Bay Infrastructure Improvement Project Phases 2 through 5. The price quote and proposed staffing meet the town's requirements for the project. The fee is within the CDBG budget. Therefore, the Community Development Office and the town CPO recommend the Board of Selectmen make this contract amendment award to Weston Sampson in the amount of $10,000. The source of funds for this contract amendment is the fiscal year 2012 CDBG grant. The proposed contract fee is equal to the amount budgeted in the grant for these services, so funds are available. Community Development Office and CPO recommend the Board of Selectmen vote to award a contract amendment for engineering plan update and bidding services to Weston and Sampson, and to authorize the chairman to sign amendment number 4 to the previously awarded contract of January 26, 2012 with Weston Sampson. Sincerely, Community Opportunities Group, Mike Pinkpank, Senior Project Manager.
All right, I will make a motion to award a contract amendment for engineering plans, update and bidding services to Weston and Sampson, and to authorize the chairman to sign amendment number 4 in the amount of $10,000 to the previously awarded contract of January 26, 2012 with Weston and Sampson.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Julie?
Yes,
Doug?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes.
and this is to get the final phase of Back Bay
Bay
done
done.
on Memorial Street.
The next item on the agenda is Council on the Aging. To discuss bidding on a van and to discuss possible hourly wage increase for van drivers and a dispatcher.
Yes. There's some further information coming down from Jeff. Which item would you like to discuss first?
I think we should talk about the van.
Talk about the van first? Is that what you'd like to do, Jeff?
Yes, please. On the van?
I wanted to start by updating everyone with our ridership numbers. These numbers are important not only for our discussion on the van, but also when it comes to talking about raising the hourly wages for our van drivers. Just this fiscal year alone, we've served 102 seniors and non-seniors. We do serve some non-seniors who have some sort of disability. We've given 3,736 rides. The first page is the breakdown of what we do. We do everything from bringing people to and from work, bringing people to errands, hairdressers, medical appointments are of course a huge portion of what we do. Nutrition is a huge portion of what we do, and a lot of that is our bringing seniors, normally a full 14-passenger bus load twice a week to Westminster, who they're able to serve congregate meals where we are not yet able to serve congregate meals. And then socialization and recreation. The second page is a breakdown of the mileage and how many rides are per vehicle. The reason why Mart Van and Mart Van 2367 is combined, it's really the same vehicle. We just have it broken up as to whether it's an everyday run or whether it's a special event. Just so that when our drivers see a list, if two things happen in one day, the morning driver gets a different list than the evening driver. So you can see what we'd like to replace is our Dodge. We are convinced that it's older than it is, but it is actually just a 2003. As you can see from our ridership numbers, we are already trying to baby this vehicle. We are on the road with 2 to 3 vehicles a day. Every single day we're bringing a busload of people to Gardner for errands, shopping, medical appointments, things like that. We also have a second vehicle dedicated for medical trips, and then a third vehicle that's either bringing people to the other senior center for congregate meals or some of our special events and trips that we offer. We offer about 3 to 4 trips a month. So you can see from the pictures what the condition of our Dodge vehicle is like. And so we're trying to baby it, and the highway department has been wonderful in fixing it every single time it comes to them. And you can see some of the maintenance reports in follow-up vehicles. I did include for you the maintenance reports on 2 vehicles, the Dodge and the Ford, just so that you could have a comparison. The Ford is a newer vehicle, and it is what we're trying to get our entire fleet to look like. All the Ford class vehicles, all with the wheelchair lift in the back, which is much more conducive for when you're having to work with a wheelchair. Having it in the back of the vehicle is just much better. I can speak from experience. I was a van driver at one of my past COAs, so I know what it's like to use the lift and to strap a wheelchair down. I can sympathize with my drivers on that. At the bottom of the Ford maintenance sheet, I do have a comparison about the same mileage in the same amount of time, what it is costing us to keep the Dodge on the road per mile versus what it's costing us to keep the Ford on the road per mile. I know it's not huge. We're looking at .056 spent on the Ford and $0.078 a mile spent on the Dodge, but the Dodge has got the highest mileage by far of any of the vehicles in our fleet. And it's, as you can see from the service report, there was one point in time where it did not go a month without going into the shop. It has broken down on the road when it's been in service, and Bob's had to make road calls to it. And obviously nobody wants that. Nobody wants to have a van full of seniors or a van full of seniors that have already been dropped off and need to get picked up and be stranded. Of our 3 vehicles, what the mileage for our Dodge is 178,000. The mileage for our Ford is 133,000, and the mileage for our van that is still partially owned by Mart is almost 30,000, 29,700. So even with babying the Dodge, the mileage is really up there. And the reason for that is because it was given to us by Mart pretty much in the condition that it's in now. When you look at the scratches and the rust and the bumps and the bruises on it, there's only one of those pictures that was an oopsie by one of our drivers. All the rest is how it came to us, including the huge gash by the directional light right around the quarter panel. All the chipped paint on the front. What happens is when a vehicle is in service by Mart, it's run into the ground. It makes trip after trip after trip, different drivers, different days. I'm not going to talk about their accountability, but I'm sure the accountability in a large operation like Mart is different than what our accountability is when we're just running for the senior center and all of our drivers, or, you know, our handful of drivers all come into the same office and see the same people and know each other and are friends with each other. So I think that makes a difference. So we'd really like to replace that vehicle. I have been investigating options, and one of the options is purchasing from a bid from the LRTA. The LRTA is the transportation organization that I was a part of when I was a driver, and I just, you know, through knowing people in that organization, we put some feelers out, with Jeff's permission, we put some feelers out to get on the list for when such bids come up. Now, the person I was told to email, I don't know whether the person even exists, but I emailed and said we'd like to be put on the bid list way back in September. Didn't hear anything, didn't hear anything, didn't hear anything. I probably waited longer than I should. But eventually I went back to my original contact and said, hey, I didn't hear anything. So she bumped me up the chain to the next person. He said, okay, I'll put you on the list. And then, by the way, here's an attachment with the current bid that's going out. We won't have another one until sometime next summer or the fall. So I just found out about these on Monday. Otherwise, I would have done a lot more research and given you guys more time, but the deadline is tomorrow, and I did just find out about it last Monday. I'm really lucky that a selectmen's meeting just happened to fall in between that time frame. So in that time, Bob from the Highway Barn went with me to Lowell to do the once-over on the vehicles, and you can see that there are pictures there. It was pouring. He was such a good sport. He was on his side crawling under those vehicles in the pouring rain. I felt so bad for him. He did the best he could to look at them without putting them up on a lift, and the fact that it was raining. But one of them is substantially in better condition than what we have now. The other one, the second choice, as you see on the paper, seems to be kind of on par. The reason for that is it will probably need transmission work. Our vehicle needs transmission work, but even with those things being equal, it's still a 2-year newer vehicle. It has substantially less mileage and it's in better condition. Both the vehicles